Greetings and welcome to NATE Module 3 Unit 21 related to criterion 10 of NBA. In the previous unit we understood the indicators for student support systems that are addressed in the criterion 9. And in this unit we will attempt to understand the indicators for governance, institutional support and financial resources. These three, that is governance, institutional support and financial resources, they really determine the quality of what we are called instructional situation. We have elaborated on this issue of instructional situation in module 2 unit 16, where we said the quality of instructional situation in an institute determines how comfortable and motivated the students feel about learning and the faculty feel about facilitating learning. This is what you would find major difference when you compare institutions. The reasons for variations can be different, but it is the level of comfort both faculty and students feel about the instructional situation that determines the quality of learning. The responsiveness of the needs and expectations of all stakeholders is either reflected or determined by these three dimensions. But the challenge to the management, especially of self-financing institutions, which are, let us say, are still to be properly established, is to offer a good instructional situation under financial constraints. This is where the management has to pay a lot of attention and say, under the given financial constraints, what is the best they can do to create a good instructional situation. And here if you look at the marks allocated to different sub criteria of criterion 10, first of all there are 120 marks for both tier 1 and tier 2 institutions. 10.1 is related to organization, governance and transparency, and tier 2 carries 40 marks and tier 1 carries 55 marks. 10.2 is related to budget allocation, utilization and public accounting at institute level. Tier 2 is 30 marks and tier 1 has 15 marks. Further, program specific budget allocation and utilization, that is 10.3, tier 2 has 30 marks, tier 1 has 30 marks. And library and internet, which constitute 10.4, carries 20 marks and 20 marks. If you look at this, while criterion 10 is dominantly about the institution, is at the level of institution, 10.3 is program specific budget allocation and utilization. It was brought in here because this 10.3 becomes part of a overall budgeting and utilization and keeping track of it, but 10.3 is really the program specific budget allocation. If you have a BTech or BE in mechanical engineering, how much budget do you have for running the program effectively from year to year? As you can see, the marks given for this are fairly heavy, 30 marks at this level. Now coming to subcriterion 10.1, organization, governance and transparency. Here the first one, 10.1.1, if you look at, state the vision and mission of the institute. 5 marks for tier 2 and tier 1. This is something that you have already done as a part of criterion 1, but here we are talking about vision and mission statements of the institute. Unless these are written as per criterion 1, you cannot write vision and mission statements for at the department level. So here availability of the vision and mission statements of the institute 2 marks, and appropriateness and relevance of statements 3 marks. So the A, that is the one needs to make this vision and mission statements available to all the stakeholders, and everyone should be familiar with this, and approximately, though they may not exactly reproduce verbatim, but they should broadly know what are the vision and mission of the institute. All stakeholders including newly admitted students should be familiar with this. So to that extent, the availability of statements at the institute website, that is the first requirement. Availability at central facilities such as library, computer center, principal chamber and so on, and availability of one set of statements in each of the departments, and availability in institute level documents. Any document that you prepare at the institute level, it should start with the vision and mission statement of the institute. So you have 2 marks for these statements being available, and the other one is appropriateness or relevance of the statements. That means the visiting committee will take a look at that and see whether they are relevant and appropriate to the institute that you have. So once again, we recommend that the institute does not use the words that are inappropriate to its context and the level at which it is operating. Now 10.1.2 is related to governing body, administrative setup, functions of various bodies, service rules, procedures, recruitment and promotional policies. And this carries 10 marks for both tier 2 and tier 1. This is where many institutions we find they are not fully transparent. So the requirement is list the governing body composition, which generally everybody does, Senate and all other academic and administrative bodies, their memberships, functions and responsibilities, frequency of meetings, participation details of external members and attendance therein. And so first thing that the college will have to do, a formal document that shows the composition of the governing body and all the other academic and administrative bodies, roles and responsibilities, how frequently they need to meet, should be made available against which the visiting committee can review. When visiting committee visits, if you say yes, you have only list of governing body members and not much other documentation, they will not be able to review. And mind you, by making this document what you call transparent, one can straight away get 4 marks for this. And the published service rules, policies and procedures with the year of publication. First of all, every institution will have to have service rules and policies and procedures, and these may get changed or may get altered from time to time. So what should be done is this particular document should be made available tagged with year of publication, and it should be made available on the website clearly indicating the year of publication. And also the minutes of meetings of all the committees that are constituted and the action taken thereof. Normally when you write minutes, you start with actions taken based on the previous minutes and then write the minutes of that particular meeting. So, if you prepare your minutes appropriately according to that, just record of the minutes of these meetings itself will be an exhibit. Okay. Now, 10.1.2 is the availability of the institutional strategic plan and its effective implementation and monitoring. As you can see, a lot of value is given, especially at tier 1 institution, that is, it carries 25 marks. Now, availability of a 5-year strategic plan. What should the strategic plan include? It should set goals for improvement of instructional situation, goals for interacting with the industry, goals for embedding itself into its context, plans for improving the infrastructure, and motivating the faculty and improving their competencies. So, as you can see, we have given an indicative list, and the strategic plan obviously should be in the context of the vision and mission of the institute itself. So, the strategic plan should really put some kind of a specific targets for each one of these activities and make it known to all the stakeholders. Yes, when we actually implement, it may not be possible to exactly meet these targets, but that will also provide a means of reviewing the situation from time to time, that is stating what are the targets we have set, to what extent we have met, and why did not we meet, or can we meet still higher level targets. That is the kind of quality loop that you can have. So, a strategic plan at the institute level is a very, very valuable thing. Everybody knows in what context they are working, in towards what specific goal they are working. But who writes this plan? The process document giving the details of how the plan is to be prepared and should be made available. That each institute can take its own have its own process to prepare the document. You can invite outside experts, you can individual departments can prepare their own strategic plans, and they can all be pooled by a central group and vetted by some outside committee and so on. You can have your own method of preparing such a document, but once the document is formalized, that is approved by the governing body, and it should be stated so in the minutes of one of the meetings of a governing body. So, the whole thing, the strategic plan should be prepared following a well defined process and should address all the issues, and it should be formally approved by governing body, and that should be made known to all the and owned by all the stakeholders. Now, let us look at 10.1.3, which becomes 10.1.4 in the case of tier 1. It is related to decentralization in working and grievance redressal mechanism. Do you have, the institute should have a grievance redressal mechanism. Why we want to call it decentralized? A decentralization is the best way to make faculty and staff develop ownership. That means there are so many small groups are looking at detailed issues, and to that extent certain amount of decentralization is always desirable. And here what do you have for this? List the names of the faculty members who have been delegated powers for taking administrative decisions. First you must have that. Make a list of faculty members who have been delegated powers for taking administrative decision, 1 mark. Specify the mechanism and composition of grievance redressal cell, and action taken report as per B above, that is 7 marks. How do you prepare the action taken report? While listing all the cases that have been addressed, but some case studies should be included and to demonstrate the actual implementation of the grievance redressal. So, it is good to include a few case studies when you prepare for, as you can see, C, action taken report. because it carries 7 marks, and exhibits are essentially documentary evidence. Now coming to 10.1.4, delegation of financial powers, whereas it becomes 10.1.5, which carries 5 marks for tier 1. In case of 10.1.4, it carries 10 marks for tier 2. And evaluation guidelines include financial powers delegated to the principal, heads of departments, and relevant in charges, whoever is relevant in charge. It could be sports, it could be other infrastructures, library, whatever it is. So the circular from the appropriate authority clearly indicating the delegation of powers is to be made available. Just by making that circular available, one can get 3 marks in tier 2 institution. So it must be formal circular, dated, signed by the appropriate authority, and also demonstrate utilization of financial powers for each of the assessment years. As you can see, it carries more marks, 7 marks for tier 2 and 3 marks for tier 1. Now what do we mean by financial powers? Financial powers are not recommendatory in nature, they are the final authority. For example, financial power would mean the ability to make payments directly to the vendor through checks. That means it does not go through the management or somebody else. A check can be directly given by the authority to whom delegation has been given. Some colleges follow this, whereas in some cases direct instruction to the accounts officer to make the payment without additional endorsements. Once the concerned authority not recommends, finally instructs the accounts officer will have to make the payment, not again get it endorsed by somebody else. That is what we really mean by delegating financial authorities. It does not matter however small the budget is, but that particular authority, that delegation should take place, and as you can see, that carries 10 marks. And the department should be able to demonstrate this through documentary evidence, that you really have at the department level certain financial authority. And here, so what are the exhibits that we require? The circular notifying the financial powers and documentary evidence to exhibit utilization at each level during the assessment years. Now coming to 10.1.5, transparency and availability of correct, unambiguous information in public domain. So what does it mean? Information on policies, rules, processes is to be made available on the website, and the dissemination of this information about student, faculty and staff should also be put on the website. It should be made, dissemination of this information to students, faculty and staff, that carries 3 marks. And the exhibit will be website and documentary evidence. By the visiting committee, once it looks at the website, it should be able to ascertain this. Now we come to 10.2, which is related to budget allocation, utilization and public accounting at institute level. So 30 marks for tier 2, 15 marks for tier 1. And 10.2.1 is related to adequacy of budget allocation. There is 10 marks for tier 2, 5 marks for tier 1. Now the quantum of budget allocation for 3 years. So there should be budget document that is prepared for 3 years, and justification of budget allocated for 3 years also should be written. These are the 2 that are required. That means you prepare your budget plan, year to year budget allocation should be made available over a period of 3 years, and then justification also need to be given. And here what do we look at in terms of exhibits? Budget formulation, finalization and approval process. First of all, how is it formed, how is budget formulated, and how it is finalized, and who approves this. A document indicating the budget proposal made by first HODs to the principal, and the document indicating the final allocation of budget by the principal to the departments. So, you must have these documents available. And requirement, allocation, adequacy, justification thereof. So, and some kind of adequacy. Of course, if the college does not have the finances, it is a different situation. In that case, you are operating under inadequate budget provisions. And here the budget should not include inappropriate provisions for some items. So, one cannot put some vague items and say put a large amount of money under that. And any large items, for example, even if you are say building or you are buying expensive equipment, large items should have justifications why such large items come into picture. 10.2.2 is utilization of allocated funds. Now, providing budget is different and utilization of the budget is different, because you have to utilize following certain rules. And the utilization record over 3 years, generally all colleges will have the accounts prepared according to this, but this is presented through a balance sheet, effective utilization, random verification for at least 2 of the 3 assessment years will have to be done by the visiting committee. And a document, it is preferable to have a document presenting an analysis of the deviations in allocation and utilization, if any, should be presented. For example, you may make some provisions, but you may not be utilizing that for some reason or the other. So, if there are deviation in allocation and utilization, and an explanation or an analysis of why it has happened should also be presented to ensure that the institute gets the required marks for that. And 10.2.3 is availability of the audited statements on the institute website. Again 5 marks for tier 1 and tier 2 institution, and just availability of audited statements, because the format is decided by the auditor, and whatever audited statement is there, it is actually a public document, and that should be made available on the website. 10.3 is related to program specific budget allocation. I have mentioned this is the only item that is related to a specific department when you are looking at the criterion 10. Now, it carries 10 marks. That means each program should have certain budget for it to run. It can be very small budget, does not matter, but it must have a budget to meet its requirements of either components, materials, equipment repair, whatever that you have. Each department should have some budget allocation, and for every year, so for over 3 years one has to present, and you need to write a justification for this. See, the HOD should formally prepare the program specific budget proposal to the principal or the management. A formal response from the management on the actual sanction of the budget to the program should be recorded. That means these 2 documents, HOD makes a proposal and there is a sanction that is given by the management or principal. These 2 documents should be part of the formal records. And you need to write further whether it's about its adequacy and all that will be evaluated in consultation with the program experts. Generally, when you are looking at this criterion 10, there is one common group of faculty, generally 2 persons from the visiting committee will be looking at these documents or will be verifying many of these. But in this particular case, the adequacy of budget allocation will be evaluated in consultation with the program expert who will be specifically requested to comment on this in relation to 10.3.1. And 10.3.2 is again utilization of allocated funds, to what extent it has been utilized. Once again there is a balance sheet, effective utilization and random verification for at least 2 of the 3 years as 3 assessment years. Once again they should also present a document presenting an analysis of the deviations in allocation and utilization, if any should be presented. No department should ask for a large budget and not utilize it. Okay? And if you are very much short of the budget and you still have to spend in some way, so the analysis of this should be presented, which will form the basis for, let us say, activities for the next year. This also to be evaluated in consultation with the program experts. Now we come to 10.4, which is related to library and internet, which are common facilities of any institute. 10.4.1 is quality of learning resources, hard and soft. Things have changed with regard to library. Earlier in each library you used to have a large number of books and sometimes multiple copies of the textbooks, and then people had to keep track of how many people are visiting, how much time they are spending. Now things have changed with many of the learning resources becoming e-resources or a digital library, and many people can somehow get access to on the internet to the textbooks as well. So now the availability of relevant learning resources is but the institute should make sure they are available to the both faculty and students. How they are available, now one has to justify that, and are they accessible to students, either to do your survey and find out what books they are not available and what kind of arrangements can be made and so on. And this can only be verified during interactions with the faculty and students. Now coming to the library and the internet part, that is 10.4.2, as you can see, internet plays a very dominant role these days for all activities, teaching and learning activities, administrative activities and so on in any institute. So first thing is the available bandwidth adequate? That carries 4 marks. And what is the extent of availability of Wi-Fi on the campus? 2 marks. And internet access in labs, classrooms, library and offices for all departments. So are they available on all these places? And then you have security mechanism. So the marks are distributed among these 4, but here the document on security mechanism should clearly indicate the hierarchy of decision making, okay, and responding to the needs of users. For example, if there is an issue, who attends to that? When will it get escalated to higher levels? And that if somebody is not able to access to something, who is deciding that? Who corrects that? And the kind of firewalls that you have established. And sometime in any educational institution you will block a large variety of websites which are not conducive for academic activities. So the websites that are blocked, and the periodic and contingency review. You have to review the whole mechanism periodically, as because one is technology is changing continuously, and also to the same extent the number of viruses that come also keep changing. So, one has to periodically review the situation and make sure the internet stays healthy and meets the academic requirements of the institute. So, this document is the one that the visiting committee will look at this. And that is the end of criterion 10, and in the next unit we will try to understand in summary. We will summarize all the 3 modules till now that we have handled, and the role and importance of NBA accreditation process, and how designing and conducting the programs in engineering can be done in the framework of OBE and NBA. It is actually a summary review of what we have done, and that will be the goal of unit 22. Thank you very much for your attention.